Okay, and please, if you will check your minutes to make sure that we don't have- We need to wait a minute until we realize that we have a quorum.
I think if it's echoing, it might mean someone's.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
Forgot to speak.
Yeah, or turn
Yeah,
on.
mute the laptop. That's cool.
No, Chair Butler Bird, we have quorum.
Thank you very much, Secretary Fuller. We're gonna call the meeting to order. Unfortunately, we were looking forward to having Jacob Alvarado Wyper share the land acknowledgement, but I don't see him here, so we're gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here.
You are? Okay. You're online?
Yeah, my name is because it shows up as Professor Whitebook.
Oh, thank you, Professor. Please go ahead.
How could be matipecham? For those that you don't know me, nos kanal na chuhi. Matipay kumiyay. Kenyashamuk by book nipu makatlak bay. My name is Jacob. I'm a travel member. I'm Ipai Kumiyai, from the village of San Pasqual, Mukolko. My clan is White Book, which means King Snake. I'm the inaugural tribal liaison at San Diego State University. I'm a professor in American Indian Studies and also teach in child family development. So with that being said, it's nice to meet everybody, for all the new people, and welcome to San Diego State and welcome to the land of my people. So we stand upon a land that carries the footsteps of millennia of Kumeyaay people. There are people whose traditional lifeways intertwine with the worldview of earth and sky, and a community of living beings. This land is part of a relationship that has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced the Kumeyaay people to the present day. It is part of a worldview founded in the harmony of the cycles of the sky and a balance in life and the forces of life. For the Kumeyaay, the red and black represent the balance of those forces that provide for harmony within our bodies as well as the world around us. As students, faculty, staff, and alumni of San Diego State University, we acknowledge this legacy from the Kumeyaay. We promote this balance in life as we pursue our goals of knowledge and understanding. We find inspiration in the Kumeyaay spirit to open our minds and hearts. It is the legacy of the red and black. It is the land of the Kumeyaay. Yeah, Khan, my heart is good, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Professor Wyckoff. We really appreciate your being willing to come and share the land acknowledgement with us today. I now like to go ahead and share Senate resolutions on principles of shared governance. And I think so.
Yeah, so a reminder for anyone in the room, please leave computer audio altogether on your laptop, so that way we don't have any feedback.
Okay,
Thank you.
So shared governance is a system of partnership, equity, accountability, and ownership that forms a culturally sensitive, inclusive, and empowering framework for developing and implementing sustainable and accountability-based decisions in service to all members of our campus and broader communities. And shared governance is an ongoing process in which faculty, staff, students, and administrators actively engage to share responsibility for identifying and pursuing an aligned set of mission-driven sustainable outcomes and priorities, active monitoring and evaluating of shared governance, successes and pitfalls in service to continual improvement, and the embodiment of a learning organization. Shared practice of and shared attitude to respect, communication, and responsibility will promote and support the growth and sustainment of trustworthiness within our university community. And so on that note, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first Senate meeting of academic year 2023-24. We have several times served, so we're going to begin right away. I'm Noel Fuller-Bird. I'm University Senate Chair and Associate Professor and Director of the Community-Based Block Multicultural Counseling and Social Justice Education Program in the Department of Counseling and School Psychology in the College of Education. We also have Marissa Vasquez, who is our Vice Chair, Amanda Fuller, our Secretary, and she's with us virtually today. Can you spotlight yourself, Amanda? Thank you. And Sachi Sharma is our treasurer. He's on the far right here in person. Mark Wheeler accepted a position at Sacramento State, so Bill Eaton has graciously agreed to serve as our parliamentarian, and Dr. Karen Cadero Kaplan is our backup parliamentarian because unfortunately, Bill is recovering from surgery. He's a real trooper. He's joining us virtually today. Esme Murdoch, Scott Kelly, and David Kanan are our senators at large. Can you please raise your hand or spotlight? And we have special projects they're going to be working with us on this year. And I'd like to thank all members of our Senate team for their hard work in bringing us here together this summer. For today's meeting, we're using this innovative hybrid format. Some of us are here in person. Our Imperial Valley colleagues are meeting with us virtually, along with others who are dealing with compromised immune systems. In order to facilitate this meeting as smoothly as possible, we're using Zoom to manage the meeting. So when you want to speak, please raise your Zoom hand, because I'll be looking on that screen and I will respond in the order that you raise your hand. And those of us meeting here in person will be muted and use our overhead mic in order to avoid the feedback that we've already been experiencing. So the music that was playing when you entered the meeting was by the rapper Logic. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and the beginning also of the time period on college campuses where more than 50% of college sexual assaults occurred. After declining in 2019 and 2020, suicide deaths have increased approximately 5% in the US. The highest suicide completers are people who are over age 65. So it's not just our young people that are suffering. The provisional estimates indicate the suicide death will further increase in 2022 and 2023. This music was written to prevent suicides and promote the 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the US. Last Monday, I attended the funeral of a young Latino gay male who had been struggling with suicidal ideation for quite some time. He lost his brother to substance use last year and 13 members of his family during COVID. He was a beloved counselor at various San Diego community colleges and the 2018 graduate of the CBD program. It's been a tough year for all of us. And as faculty, staff, students, and alumni, please be aware of your spheres of influence. Notice what's going on with your students and colleagues. Speak up and help those who appear depressed, anxious, or have suicidal ideation to get the help they need by reaching out for services on our campus and in our community. Don't be a bystander. Connection and creating a sense of belonging are key preventative strategies. And please don't hesitate to ask about suicide. I think that's one of the biggest issues that gets us into trouble, is that we're often afraid to ask, and asking often saves lives. We'd like to thank everyone who attended last week's August 29th Senate orientations. And for those who were not able to attend, a videotape is posted on the Senate listserv, which Secretary Fuller will point out to you shortly. Our Senate has several important principles that guide our work and maintain the soul spirit of democracy on our campus. These include our university statement on diversity, which states, as a university committed to learning in all its forms, San Diego State University recognizes the need to attract and retain a critical mass of diverse persons who will advance its goals and ideals. And our principles of community and shared governance also acknowledges that imbalances of power, accessibility, equity, and privilege persist in higher education and in society, and we are committed to addressing and dismantling these imbalances. Further, we promote a culture of inclusion in which all are valued and treated with respect, dignity, and fairness so that they may thrive. The Senate uses parliamentary procedure, which was developed for the orderly operation of a large contentious body, the British House of Parliament. Robert's Rules of Order was developed from them, and we use them to run our meetings. These rules were established in order to make meetings fair and equitable while controlling time and relevance so that the work of our organization could be accomplished with a minimum of discord and a maximum of productivity. When these procedures and rules are used in this manner, they can be very useful tools. However, when they're strictly enforced or enforced to advance the agenda of only one side in a debate, or if they silence vulnerable voices, they can be a very destructive tool. It is therefore recommended by the authors of Robert's Rules that the rules always be accompanied by a strict adherence to fairness and simple, basic, civil common sense. Although we wonder sometimes what common sense is. Abide by these rules and please wait to be recognized by me as your chair before you speak. And when you do speak to a motion, indicate if you're speaking for or against it. Also, if a guest wishes to speak, a senator will need to yield the floor to them, and then I will recognize them. For the sake of time and the flow of the meeting, there may be times when I will limit the number of speakers, such as 3 speaking for, 3 speaking against. Remember to keep your comments concise and that a senator can only speak twice to a motion. There may also be times when the flow of the deliberation would be best served by shifting for a moment to another speaker or a subsidiary motion, and then shifting back to the main motion. And we will try to carefully explain when that's happening. Please, I know it's tempting, but please avoid sending messages to officers through the chat, text, or email while the meeting is underway unless it's absolutely necessary. Much as we like to believe that we can multitask, our brains are really not designed to do that. We're working hard to run the meeting, and in most cases, we won't be able to address your question or concern until after the meeting actually ends. So instead, use the Zoom raise hand function in the reactions tab to raise your issue and wait until I recognize you. And additionally, if you're a speaker who has been recognized, please don't recognize other senators who have questions. I will recognize them for you. Also, the best use of the chat is to provide information during meetings. So avoid getting into debate in the chat.
Recording in progress.
And finally, SDSU and Senate meetings are the place where official Senate business takes place, not the Senate listserv. I will repeat that again, not the Senate listserv. The Senate listserv has also serves as a place where information can be shared. The Senate has 8 standing committees and several other committees through which we do our work. So if you have questions, concerns, or other information, submit them through the Senate webpage or email a Senate officer, and we'll show you where you can submit that as well. And we will promise to follow up with you and send the issue to the relevant committee or resource as a referral if that's needed. Senate officers are preparing, also looking at our dynamics, and we may actually prepare another way for our agendas, meeting notices, and other information can be sent, because we have received some complaints and folks are feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information that they're receiving on the listserv. We hope that this will be a fruitful, meaningful, and productive year for you and our SDSU community. And we'd like to welcome you to the Senate and thank you for your service. So I now like to shift and go to item number 2, approval of the agenda. Secretary Fuller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler Bird. I'd like to move approval of today's Senate meeting agenda.
Are there any comments or questions?
Recording in progress.
Seeing no motion, Are some of these people back big time? We can go ahead and accept the agenda as presented, seeing no dissent. We will now move on to item number 3, approval of the SEC meeting minutes. Secretary Fuller, you're acknowledged.
Thank you, Chair Butler Bird. I'd like to move approval of the meeting minutes from May of 2023.
Actually, those are the Senate meetings, not the SEC meeting minutes.
Yes, it's been updated on the agenda online.
Are there any questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, seeing none, the meeting minutes are approved. We will now move to some information items. Let me check my clock real quick. Maybe still have a few minutes. We'd now like to we already have several information items. We moved them to this point. Usually we have action items that will come first, but we didn't have an official action item. So we're just gonna focus on these information items, two of which have time certains already. And those are let me see, the International Affairs Council, as well. We had a report from the, we have California CFA, California Faculty Association. They will do a time certain, but there was also one more item. Now there's one more item. It was the Counseling and Psychological Services, University and Police Department collaboration on mental health project, but they won't be able to be with us today, but we want to stress how important we feel that particular item is and look forward to them bringing it back soon. So I'm going to ask everybody, are there any of these information items that you would like to hear from the person that's responsible for posting them on our agenda? All right. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to go ahead and accept these items as they have been presented? Thank you, Senator Schellenberg. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Secretary Fuller. Is there any dissent in approving these items as presented? Or can this be accepted by unanimous consent? All right, seeing no dissent, they are all accepted by unanimous consent. All right, we still have a few more minutes before we have our first time survey, so I would like to go ahead and quickly move to one of our reports, and that's the SEC report. The SEC did meet 2 weeks ago. One of the things I'd like to highlight is the 2022-23 Senate Excellence in Teaching Award winner, Dr. Thais DaCosta Lagos Alves. And I'm wondering if she's online. She said that she might actually come, but I don't see her. Well,
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Okay, there she is. Hi, Thais. It's good to see you. So we want to thank the Faculty Honors and Awards Committee for selecting Dr. Thais DaCosta Lagos Alves as our Senate Excellence in Teaching Award winner. Since her arrival at SDSU in 2009, Dr. Alves has demonstrated superlative teaching and deep appreciation for her student success while maintaining a vigorous research program that actively includes her students. She has won numerous awards, including the 2021 Alumni Association Monty Award for Outstanding Faculty Contributions to the University, the 2015 Outstanding Faculty Advising Award, and the 2012 Educator of the Year Award by the Construction Management Association of America. Dr. Alves brilliantly embodies the teacher-scholar model. Let's give Dr. Alves and Dr. Alves, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, I would like to thank the Senate for this this prestigious award. I take the work I do very seriously. I love working with my students, and I can only hope that I can contribute to their success and the success of the university for many years to come. So thank you for this award. It's very meaningful and very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Alves will be presenting a lecture. We're trying to pin down the date. We will be in touch with everyone soon, and we were gonna also have a great reception for her at that time. Thank you so much. And the second item that I'd like to discuss is this SEC did meet, and we discussed the external faculty member pool for review committees. We needed to come up with a process to do that. And what we decided to do is to just have SEC members nominate folks to serve on that pool. And those folks will review academic administrators. So that will be underway shortly. Please help us to find a good pool of folks who are willing to serve in this important role. Associated Students President Tarek Mosley is going to provide a report for us.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hey, hello everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces in here. I see a myriad of faces on the screen, so it looks like a nice mosaic right now. But I want to update everyone on exactly what we're doing, and everything we are doing right now pertains to how can we steer and not row? How can we leverage the resources that already exist so that we can move more efficiently, more effectively, and eventually institutionalize and systemize processes this semester. And once we do that this semester, they can continue to live on for the next 100 years and affect students positively and create relationships between different campus partners. And so our first thing that we are obsessed with, and I don't think that's an inappropriate word to use at all, is careers. Developing students' careers and allowing them to access careers more easily and more effectively. And our career conversations continue to happen. One of the ways we're doing this is to build our alumni network. So the plan to build this alumni network is continuing to be executed. We are building off of the momentum of last year, which was when we created the first huge mixer in Viejas Arena. We had very notable AS alumni like Kevin Faulkner, who is the ex-mayor, come out, and a lot of other familiar faces. We are assigning our student, and this is all, by the way, pertaining under career services and career development, and professional development is the first step to acquiring a career. And so we are assigning our student representatives more responsibility this year. And in order for them to take on more responsibility, we must give them more information. Information is a currency, and our students will continue to walk into rooms being better equipped with more information and have enough knowledge to participate in nuanced conversations so that the students are not falling behind or slowing down conversations. In fact, they're propelling them with an innovative twist, and they have all the information that makes that innovative twist able to come out of their mouths. So what can, this comes back to the steering not rowing. What can AS do to further careers that only AS can do? What can we do exclusively that no one else on campus can do? And that's the frame and mentality that we're approaching career conversations. A big thing tends to be the physicality of our location. So you can't walk to class. It's actually impossible to walk to class without going through a property that Associated Students own. So we're all talking about the union and a bunch of other facilities, but you can't get to class without walking through the union. So the physicality is a very important aspect. If we can make careers more physical and unavoidable through our union, we're still deciding on what form that'll take, but that's a really great way we can do it. And I'm also open to any suggestions if we want to connect after this to how you believe AS can contribute in a way that's unique to Associated Students. Along with careers, we are trying to increase and accelerate campus growth initiatives, and that for us to be able to do that, we have to meet with people around campus and create relationships, and those relationships, hopefully we can become part of the process that happens and unfolds every single year in order for something to get done, and we can make it happen faster, and that way it's systemized, and we can do that for the next years. So we've been holding back to school events, welcoming students back to school, creating a transition process that's easy, especially for first years and transfer students. We're getting more people to get connected to Associated students, and we have very, very high levels of interest in getting involved in Associated students. We are collaborating obviously with career services. We met with Jerry Sheehan, who is the Chief Information Officer about My SDSU, and he also has his own initiatives that we're working to propel forward, and we're going to work with students to give feedback on My SDSU. Alumni Association is being the plan for that is being executed. And that's the bulk of what we're working on. There's obviously the day-to-day maintenance requirements and the meetings we go to every day and making students feel welcome on campus. But these are the bigger high-level things that are ambitious, that I'm interested and excited to work on. And we have an amazing team. We have Melvin behind me, Ali. So as VP of External Relations, he's been traveling around California for CSSA and advocating for California students on the broader spectrum. Ali's been doing amazing things in the University Affairs section, and she has her first University Senate meeting on this Wednesday. Nick Hodge, Graduate Student Association, and we're working heavily to make sure with Nick to make sure that graduate students are put at the forefront of Associated students this year to put a light on the amazing things that graduate students do and the fact that they bring a lot of notoriety to our campus. It is a big selling point and selling factor for why people even want to come to SDSU in the first place. And that is what we work. Thank you. And if you want to connect after, please approach me and get my phone number.
Okay, so I'd like to quickly move back to my SEC report. The Senate did send out a survey it was distributed to 132 senators and affiliated folks, because it was broader than just their senators in early August. We had a response rate of 68 or 69, I'm sorry, which was very similar to the numbers that we had last year. And so we want the first part of that survey was focused on meeting modalities. And the results of the survey were included in your agenda packet and presented here on the screen. As you can see, senators again lean towards a hybrid virtual meetings for both the SEC and Senate. Maintaining good health is, of course, our top priority, but also maintaining healthy relationships as a community. And it's a lot more difficult to connect when meeting virtually, because it's easier to dehumanize each other. So we strongly recommend that senators attend meetings in person whenever possible. Hybrid meetings are also very difficult to pull off effectively, but we're doing our very best to give you, and we ask you all for your grace as we continue to figure out how to make this work in the best possible way. And therefore, Senate officers decided that this fall we will hold meetings virtually at both the Lipinski Center for SEC meetings and Arts and Letters for Senate meetings. Town halls will probably be held virtually. As part of our hybrid modality, as I said earlier, we're asking everybody to please bring your laptop or digital device with Zoom activated but muted in order for us to be able to run the meeting. And we'll also do our voting through Zoom as well. We will now move to our time certain, and that's item 4.2, International Affairs Council. The AVP Alfaro, you're recognized.
Thank you. I guess I don't need a microphone, right? Can you hear me?
I think can you all hear? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'll just keep on. Yes, what I'm presenting today is our university global strategy. It's part of the university strategic plan, which is activity 29. And this year is the year that we're launching full launch of the strategy. And if we go to the second slide, I want to just commend actually the Senate for approving the SDSU Global Learning Outcomes, the GLOWs, because that really gave us the impetus to begin to really add some structure and some more academic rigor to what we call international education. So these were the the goals that were approved back in, I think it was 2021. And these goals also include the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals framework, where those can be met through any one of these goals. So this has been used very strategically for professors that are maybe proposing faculty-led programs or research projects. So it's been very useful. So I just wanted to bring that back up because it's been very useful to really raising the rigor in international education. The next slide is what I really want to focus on, and that is the actual priorities and goals that we have now in international education. Do you see on the left is a complete report, 54 pages of all the work that we've been doing for the last 3 years in coming up with this final framework, which is our global strategic plan. So if anybody is interested, it's on our website. You can click on it and you can get the information there. But the main thing that I wanted to focus on here is that when we developed this, we were able to work with the American Council on Education, ACE, the Internationalization Lab. So this has been reviewed by a group of other colleagues that are working on internationalization throughout the globe. So we had the opportunity to do this, and what we did is we put all of your recommendations in this report that is there for you. Okay, so just wanted to show you that. Now, one of the key things that I'd like for you to look at is really the outer circle that we have here. And what we are focusing on is the outer circle. If you look at global engagement also includes transborder engagement. So we are working with a lot of our transborder work here, including the Reborder Conference that is coming up in October. And I don't know how many of you know, but San Diego and the Tijuana region have been selected for the award for the World Design Center, so that for 2024. So our Reborder Conference the title is Developing Oportunidades, Designing Opportunities, so just opportunities. We are sending a letter out today, as a matter of fact, as we speak, to all students to invite them. We're going to have a bus where they can actually go to Tijuana and be part of it. So global engagement is definitely including transborder engagement. The other outer circle that I want to point out is the environmental and social sustainability aspect of it. So everything that we do, we really are trying to be very conscious of what we're doing to our environment with a lot of the travel that's going on. So we have come up with a lot of opportunities that are transborder, also global opportunities where students are able to engage in local programs with global perspectives, as well as transborder programs, and as well as core using a lot of the online services that we have right now. Innovation, of course, is the other area where right now we're coming up with just a lot of different workshops for professors that want to innovate something different, something that we haven't done before, keeping in mind the sustainability goals. And then the one that we're working on very, very rigorously this year is access and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have access for this because we're trying to make sure that we really tap into students that have not even considered global education or study abroad opportunity. So we're looking at who are the usual suspects and who are the ones. So we're working with looking at what does it take to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. When we say that we prepare global citizens, that we really give them the opportunity to do so. So that's an area that you'll see a lot of work this year. So anyway, so those are the 4 areas there, but I want to go to the last slide, which I only have 4 slides on. I was able to bring it down. The key questions that really are here for the university are, what does a global strategy mean for SDSU? Because this is not an international affairs strategy, it's a university strategy. So we really, one of the things that we're doing this year as we launch for the International Education Week, which starts in November, is trying to see with every department, every college, every faculty member, every student, and associated students included, is looking at what does it mean to you? What does a global strategy mean for a college? So that we have colleges, and departments that really are thinking about this in a very strategic way. So our teams are working with every department to do this and to create these opportunities. So these are the questions that we are engaging with units and also the resource centers. Just looking at. Let me give you an example. Like, for example, how can we get more Black students to get involved in this? So we're working with the Black Resource Center. We also have the Africana Studies that have a program going to Ghana this year. So because that's interesting to this group of people. So we're really looking at what is interesting to the Asian community, to the tribe, to the Latinx, so that we develop programs that really make sense for them. In other words, not everybody has to go to Europe. So these are the things that we're doing, and we're super excited about it. And we just want to make sure that everyone here in the Senate and at the university really embraces this as a university global strategy and not an international affairs strategy. So I wanted to end really quick in case anyone has any questions.
Thank you for that comprehensive, concise report. We really appreciate
You told me 10 minutes, I
it.
said.
You did. I see one hand up, and that's
Why should I do it on Zoom?
President Tarek, please.
So I know international internships are part of the strategy, and there's things like getting an internship in Oaxaca. And I've also talked to Danny a little bit, and he wants to, I don't know if this is the first time ever, but this is the first time it's started to really emerge that we want to get students jobs in foreign economies. And he's looking specifically at India because it's a blossoming country, and now there's a lot of opportunities for everyone to go work in India, and there's a huge tech sphere over there. So not India specifically, but just foreign economies in general. What is the process of getting students to work there look like? Getting them a permanent job there in maybe 10, 15 years, what does that look like?
Well, all of this it has to be very strategic. So we look at, what are some agreements, who are we working with over there? So we do a lot of exploratory work. So if you're interested in doing that, whether it's a student, whether it's a faculty member or staff member, you would meet with myself and some of our team members to work out like, what is the goal? What do we need to do? What are the resources that we need? And we'll make it happen. But yes, that includes service learning, job opportunities. And I know that in your speech, you talked about really setting up students for careers. So that's the whole idea, is that they will be able to use international education. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the reports that have been coming out of students that have been doing work abroad, and that they're landing really amazing jobs because of that international perspective. So I'm happy to work with you on that, and let's get it going. And then you're part of our university council for international affairs. That's what we can work on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so we want to thank you so much for your comprehensive report.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, we will move back to our agenda. We have a time certain at 3 o'clock, but before then, thank you. I want to thank Senator Hernandez for doing the right thing. Please, everybody in here, get some snacks and stuff. We don't want to turn that back in at the end of our meeting. Now that the cups have arrived, please help yourself. All right, so I'd like to talk about part 2 of the Senate survey. And that part of the survey was addressing one of our policies, which is to come up with a list of major concerns or problems for the Senate's attention during the academic year. And so if we could pull that survey up so we can take a quick look at those results, it was included in your packet. Of the 6 concerns that were listed on the survey, 3 received the highest scores and 2 tied for 4th place. So collective bargaining and compensation for administrators, faculty, staff, and graduate students was number 1. Not surprised. The future of teaching and service at San Diego State, lecturers, professors of practice, GAs and TAs in the quest for R1 status was number 2. Number 3 was SDSU budget challenges and strengths. And then the 2 items that tied were creating a more welcoming Senate and campus community by implementing Senate guiding philosophies in university senate meetings, listservs, and throughout the campus. And develop and implement a Senate diversity plan. And that's not optional. We have to do that this year. And then, item number 5, health and well-being, mental health issues, burnout, overwork, high turnover, campus transitions, telework, and COVID-19 that tie with the previous, item. And artificial intelligence, surveillance, capitalism, and mass datafication. How are new technologies impacting SDSU higher ed individuals and communities? That was the 6th item. So those, there were additional ideas that were posed, but they all kind of fell underneath those 6 items. So they will be integrated in. So I was wondering if we had any feedback or questions or comments about these potential agenda items. And if so, can you raise your hand in the Zoom? All right, seeing no questions or comments, we will bring these items back to the next meeting for our formal vote. And thank you, Kurt, your timing is impeccable. Our 3 o'clock is here, so we might as well segue straight on to President Delatorre.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah. And I just want to welcome back all the senators and the new faculty, staff, and students that are joining this academic year. Again, Chair Noah Butler-Byrd, I appreciate the ongoing partnership that we've had, and particularly your service to the university community. It really is, your leadership has been critical. I'm very excited this year to work with our Associate Students President, Karen Morsi, and his leadership team. He'll share later today himself with his clear and shared commitment to our students' career success, and it's been really delightful working with them all. As always, it's personally important for me to acknowledge and thank the faculty, staff, and student leaders. You are really at the forefront of the success that we've been seeing in instruction and the metrics that we've seen and the exponential growth in our research. So in many ways, not only have you been servicing the campus, but it's very clear to me that you're improving the lives of the community and broader society. In fact, I want to mention today, I was at a wonderful meeting today in National City with our faculty who are involved in the recent awarding of the $10 million from EPA to look at issues of global warming, sustainability, environmental justice. Professor Becca Lewison was there to present, and it was really quite a wonderful event with both congressmen as well as the mayor of National City. And the role that we're playing for the 9th District, not only here in dealing with these issues, but also if you think about the expanse of what they're doing that reaches out to Guam and the Mariana Islands. I have to say I'm very, very proud of what they're doing and what we're doing with our community. So for many of you who know, this is the first Senate meeting of the academic year. And as I shared in the convocation last month, I wanted to focus on a shared purpose. And it's important because we are here because we care about our students and our community at SDSU. We're also, all of us, in different seasons in our journey here at SDSU, and we want to continue to work in harmony, in purpose, and in depth. And I think that's important because there are many things that are occurring outside of our environment that can affect us. One of the things that I want to address right now, of course, is our California State University system has some very serious issues that must be resolved this year, and of course will have an impact on this university. First of all, the CSU Board of Trustees will be voting on a proposal to help address the persistent underfunding of the system and work toward both a sustainable model of funding and predictability of the budget. For those who are not aware, but this will be in a couple of weeks, the board will vote in a proposed 5-year, 6% tuition increase for undergraduate students across the CSU. If this is approved, this 5-year plan will create a funding to close the budget gaps and contribute to our faculty and student success and help provide competitive salaries and benefits to our system employees. Just as perspective of why this is important, this would be our only second tuition increase in 12 years. If you look at the UC system, they have had a number of tuition increases, but more importantly, what's important for our students and families is to have predictability of growth, not something that occurs in one fatal swoop, but something that can be planned on, as well as for us to plan on in terms of how we will meet the financial needs of our students. The other thing that I think is an important note is that I think all the presidents are looking forward to the outcome of the collective bargaining negotiations that are occurring within the CSU system and the unions. So for those who are new, none of the 23 presidents are allowed to be involved in the simple level negotiations. I remain hopeful that the result, whatever it may be, will make us stronger. And just to put it aside, I've been a professor for a large segment of my career. In fact, I was, talking this morning about the fact that it was about 40 years ago that I was working on my dissertation. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was focused in the area of looking at the impact of farm workers and collective bargaining and the implications for those communities in terms of equity and social justice. So in many ways, even though this is not a focus of my role as a president, it is something as a labor economist that I think is critical for us in the future. So as we move forward, I want us to recognize that this is a very complex issue, that as president, I am very committed to ensure the sustainability funding, but also that we need to recognize the importance of compensation for all of our employees, and the importance of recognizing the cost of living and how that is affecting decisions for faculty to stay, students to come here, as well as our valuable staff. Another issue I do want to mention is that I still am, deeply troubled about what occurred in Maui with the devastating fires and what is unfolding, and that we have, and many of our community members here, faculty, staff, and students have, reached out to provide direct support. So again, this is something, as we look at climate change and we look at the devastation that we're seeing, whether it's hurricanes or these horrible fires, we know that this is really a critical environmental justice issue. It is an issue that reminds us that we are accelerating the natural disasters that we're all experiencing and how important it is. And I'm reminded of the importance of our own strategic goal on sustainability and how important our students have been in reminding us of this important role. I also want to highlight that I am saddened by the attacks on the members of our communities based on identities alone, and that these hate, this rise in hate and bias-related incidents are really occurring across the nation. In particular, most recently in Jacksonville, Florida, the community is mourning the death of 3 people killed in a racist attack at Dollar General store. So every instance that we see of discrimination or violence has far-reaching consequences, not merely for the person's harm, but for all of us. These and other harmful acts erode the fabric of our society and fracture trust. I also want to highlight that meanwhile, we're seeing more legislation that harms a member of our LGBTQI+ community. And according to the Human Rights Campaign, more than 520 anti-LGBTQ+ bills have been introduced in state legislatures this year alone. So this is a new record, and it led the HRC to declare its first national state of emergency for LGBTQ+ Americans. And I say this because when we look at our campus as being consistently one of the top universities that has supported our LGBTQ+ community, I have to bring to our attention that we must do more and recognize the importance of this impact, not only in our community, but the broader politics that we're seeing that is driven by division and contempt, as well as the stresses that are occurring with our economy, including unprecedented inflation, post-COVID, which has affected so much of how we are currently practicing what we do, but more importantly, has affected the mental health of many. So, but even with the turbulence that is surrounding the environment of SDSU, I remind myself that the greatest armor for our society against these challenges and evils is education. Together, we all have been able to meet and do very important work. And as I said, we have worked in a way that has been productive, has been life-changing, and has been very critical for those around us to continue to believe in the future. So, bringing us back to the idea of purpose and depth and harmony, one of the things we say often at SDSU is that our diversity is our power. And it's true, and it always will be. We are driven by compassion in our work, in education and community building, and the very ways we work together with public higher education can create the conditions that improve human lives. Again, I was so proud of Becca Lewison's comments today about how she is going to be moving forward with this very significant work supported by the Department of Energy and EPA. And literally, you know, in her words, it was, this is going to be community driven. This is going to come from the community in trying to address the historical inequalities that we've seen in terms of environmental justice and injustice. So I just was in awe of what she is doing and what she's doing with her team. So when we think about that, I think we can say that there are some very proud moments that we can look at. And as I begin my 6th year at SDSU, yes, it seems like it's been a blink of an eye, but I think our purpose here, and for many of us here, is to empower our community and to create a more equitable and compassionate and prosperous world. We do this through our teaching and research and by offering enriching experiences for our students. The fact that our researchers were able to secure $192 million in the last year, and that we continue to see year-over-year growth, is a testament to the strength of our faculty and to this purpose. This is a sign of a national research powerhouse. And what's critical is to understand that it's even more remarkable when you think about the diversity of our students, the diversity of our faculty, and the diversity of our community. And that indeed we're on a trans-border institution that makes us unique in that we open on to the border. We don't reject the border. And when I think about when we look at problems such as the sewage leakages that are occurring in Tijuana, and the fact that our faculty are on the front end of trying to find a solution to this, I have to say I'm incredibly proud. So at CSU, of course, when we look at many R1 institutions, it has a different tenor based on where you're located, but our tenor makes us incredibly special. And what's more important is that as we move forward, we're linking this to student success. When I think about, you know, students at our core, it really is very critical to see this intersection point that makes us, I think, unique. I also want to look at, and I over the weekend was able to talk to many of our philanthropic donors at the football game. But what strikes me is how proud they are of us. And in fact, when you look at the $137 million in this last year, and then if you look at the past 5 years, we are getting closer and closer to $1 billion goal, but without a campaign, without a broadcast, without being on a bully pulpit. People are investing in us. But what's more important, this year we gave out over $300 million in student aid to our students, the highest we've ever done. And so from my vantage point, and I remember speaking to Tarek about this, as we go forward with this tuition increase, at the heart of the issue is not just getting the money to create you know, the compensation and the support structures we need, but also recognizing how do we support our students so that you mitigate any harm that will result in a single student dropping out because of financial need. So the level of research funding in philanthropy has demonstrated that we have grown, I think, at least from the perspective of many, of one in which they trust us, they believe in our mission of excellence, and indeed it crosses public sector, private sector, and our alumni. So we continue to support our faculty and scholars, and we're grateful for the support that we've received from the donor community, because all of these help us in supporting our faculty, our staff, and our graduate student researchers, among other things. It allows us to improve our laboratories, expand our facilities, and above all, it helps us to create meaningful experiences for our students while addressing some of the greatest challenges of the world. And we will build more. We are academic leaders at this moment, connecting both existing and new financial investments across SDSU, SDSU Imperial Valley, and SDSU Mission Valley. It is representing a multi-location investment. There will be new academic infrastructure. I am very pleased that we actually are beginning to look at North Life Sciences, which 5 years ago, I have to tell you a story. Walter Schell, was the interim dean at the time, came to me and I was able to take a tour. I remember taking board members, but what struck me about that was it was clearly unacceptable to have our faculty in that location at any moment of time. And I diligently put us in the list within the chancellor's office, and we stayed in the middle of the list for 4 years. And finally, we were able to get some movement. Largely, I have to say it was because we were able to create a creative mechanism in order to address that. But we were also to work with our administrative leaders who are willing to move and help look at space differently so that we could find adequate offices for our faculty. So I'm very pleased that we're looking at administrative spaces differently, such that we are going to prioritize academic spaces over administrative spaces. I also am very pleased that when we look at what is happening in the Raleigh campus, which had been one building for many, many years, that we will have a new STEM building. And moreover, when I was in Imperial Valley last week, I was impressed by Congressman Maurice's commitment, the Mayor of Raleigh's commitment, supervisors' commitment to ensure that they would help us in creating the infrastructure. Because when you build in a rural area, it's not just a building. You have to think about sewage, you have to think about electricity, and you have to be able to leverage the relationships in order to fund those elements as well. So it is more than just a building. It's building a community, it's building an opportunity, and it's bringing STEM to an area that hasn't had the opportunity to have these STEM programs. And also, we finally are going to be launching the first innovation district building in Mission Valley with LP West, with successful RFP, RFIQ, and with a health hub, and also Techstars that will be able to, again, build on what we have done for many years with the launch pad, with our innovation hubs that we have here on campus. Now, all of these are funded through public-private or public-public partnerships, largely because, as I mentioned, the deferred maintenance, the issues with the state getting revenue bonds have been limited. And we've been creative in order to create the kind of vision we need for our students and our faculty. We're not waiting for funding. We're becoming much more aggressive, working with our legislative supporters, both federal and state, to see to what extent there are intersection points to support the work that we are doing. So it is, I think, a spirit that has defined a very different approach, but we can no longer wait until the dollars come to us. We have to move towards them. I wanted to talk briefly about the National Association of College and University Business Officers in NACUBO. A year ago, we wanted to have a greater understanding, if you will, of the budget choices that are made. And I put this within the context of a year ago, we did not know the strategy that would be used in order for us to move forward with a tuition increase. There are many things on the table, and one on the table was differential tuition, but more importantly, the CO office itself decided to do a cost accounting of all majors in the system. Largely, of course, my concern was we needed to know that as well as they needed to know it at our level, because we have such a broad variety of exceptional programs. We also wanted to move forward with our goals and objectives in a meaningful way. So what I'm very happy to say is we wanted to make sure also that as we move forward with particularly the humanities and liberal arts, we could continue to create the kind of support structures. In fact, one of the things that I found very rewarding last semester was going to the Mellon Foundation, talking to program officers, and their particular interest was how do we link humanities and liberal arts in a way in which we can link them to workforce outcomes, and their willingness for them to work with us. First with a concept paper. So for those who don't know, Mellon Foundation, you don't submit a grant. You actually have to provide ideas and they solicit. So we're able to submit our prison project out of PSFA under Amy Buckley, and they have actually asked for a paper. It's going to the board, a concept paper, and now that is going to move forward. But more importantly, the conversation that I absolutely thought was critical was the one discussing the doctoral degrees that we hope to see by September signed by the governor, which would be working with us to develop a professional doctoral degree in the humanities so that it could be tied to workforce. And we had this conversation. I said, wait a minute here, wait till we actually have the authority. And I know there'll be a team of faculty interested in working with you and create the funding opportunity for us to support us moving forward. So one of the things that's important is understanding our students. Where do they want to go? What are their interests, what are the careers they want to have? And to do this with some intentionality. If you look at our programs today, about 45 majors have more than 90% of our graduates. And these are questions that we need to discuss at the department level. So what was fabulous is I had 3 days of working with department chairs, and they were able to respond, provide feedback on the observations from the slides that we presented from the first draft of the Nakuba report. But what was interesting here is that they wanted more data. They wanted to have a 5-year time series. In fact, I have to give kudos to the chair of physics who brought that up, as well as some of the other faculty who, because of when the data was collected, their concern was, again, a one year snapshot. So most of the people know you need at least 2 points for a line, right? That doesn't provide enough data. So that being said, we had, I think, a successful meeting. My goal is actually to engage more and more with department chairs. Why? Because if you look again at my resume, most of my career was as a department chair. The rubber hits the road with the department chair. You often are the ones that are going to implement the policy as a department chair. But more importantly, you provide context to what we are thinking about. I have to say, Clarissa from European Studies, when she was, I had never met her, but what a brilliant woman. I have to tell you, she came up with wonderful ideas that gave me pause about how to reimagine this particular degree, right? And when I heard her, I said, you know, the idea of this is really about how do we reimagine? How do we meet our students where they want to be met? And it is a different environment we're living in. We're living in an environment where students and families are expecting that. They're expecting that intersection point. So I've asked, you know, Provost Tong as well as Agnes Wong Nickerson to go back based on the comments that the chairs have had, to ask Nakubo to continue to do some analysis that's meaningful, and also to bring into context some of the original data that they were, some of the work that the provost was doing prior to this meeting, which is, let's look at the general education courses, let's look at the concentrations, let's look at things that are really important, let's look at those programs that essentially require certain teaching ratios in order to be effective. So if you think about taking studio art, that's a good example. Very, very expensive, right? But at the same time, you have to have the right ratios in order to create the kind of experience to train these artists. It's not something that you can simply ignore. So I want to just end with that, saying more to follow, but also to also take a moment to welcome the new deans that we have and the nearly 50 new tenure track faculty this fall. And we will continue to hire more tenure track faculty. But I think it's important because as we bring in these new deans and faculty, recognizing that in the sense of community, we embrace them. We also are going to be hiring a new vice president of student affairs and campus diversity. The finalists will be on campus for interviews in the week of October 2nd, so I encourage everyone to participate. I know, Tariq, you're involved in that search. As well as, oh, you both are great. Well, I'm looking forward to the feedback. And we're hoping to look at that. We're also committed to really reimagining, if you will, the MPP levels in terms of where we can reduce. Now, some of the areas we won't be able to. So if you've had time to look at the COSA report, you'll recognize that we will be increasing staffing at that level. And many of those individuals will be MPP. So the goal will be, where is it critically necessary in order to meet compliance and service needs? And where can we find greater efficiencies? And finally, we're achieving great things together. When we look at our strategic plan, we are on the rise in so many different ways, and we have met so many of these goals. So for those who have not seen, we are within our colleges, we have a number of programs that have risen in the top 10 nationally. And our university is now ranked number 16 in Forbes. And I just want to mention this because it's not that we're in the ranking of the top 25 and we're the only CSU, but it's a metrics of Forbes that I think are really important in how we look at metrics changing. So I'm pleased because this ranking leans into variables like social mobility, alumni earnings, equity of opportunity, and overall return on investment to our students. So things that matter to families.
He's excited.
These are things that matter to students, and I know that we'll hear from Tariq, and he will also share more on that. So it goes back to our shared purpose. We want to expand the depth of opportunities we provide our students. And the numbers are growing. We have, when I looked at today, the enrollment numbers shared by AVP Stephen Hyman, we are at over 100.88% on target. It is going to be the largest, and in terms of our persistence, we're still in that area of, 89.9, 90%. Our students are coming back. And so when we look at how well we are doing in relationship to many other campuses, and I'm not saying just in California, but nationally, it speaks to, again, the fact that we have done an incredible job here, and I want to thank all of you. So the progress, the residential population that we have, the parents, and I was really fortunate this year, and I do this every year, but I was able to go to some of the dorms and talk to some of the parents who were enrolling in, some of the students are in quads, and I had to ask some of the students, how is it to be in a quad? They said they absolutely loved it. But the parents in particular, and this was a consistent message, the movement that they had was flawless. They were helped, and we had a lot of alumni this year. It's the first time who volunteered to help move in our students. So these conversations, these connections were really meaningful and impactful. And so again, these are choices that our students make, but they do it because they have a community that they feel will embrace them, help them, and allow their parents to also relish the experience. The other thing I wanted to mention is that our enrollment of our underrepresented minority students has increased by more than 16%. So we continue to be, I think, this unique unicorn in terms of diversity and inclusion, in that we have incredibly successful metrics, we have diversity of students, and we have student success. We also have new centers that have emerged. We have now the Pierce Greek Life Center, which has been endowed with over $3.5 million, the first one of the largest endowment in the country of a Greek Life Center. We have a basic needs center, which continues to grow with its endowment as well. And as I said, our campus pride, again, report our university one of the nation's best for LGBTQA+ students. Our students are of all backgrounds and identities and experiences, and they want to be here. And they are successful, as I said, because of you. When we look at all the metrics, as I said, and it's not just the 2025 metrics, as I said, when we look at data like internships, but more importantly, when we look at the feedback of what the students want, we're beginning to align And so there's a natural synergy in terms of the conversations we're having. 5 years ago, I remember that at the time, starting out, and I think there was always a natural synergy with AS. But I would say this year is going to be a remarkable year. We're going to do things that I think we couldn't have imagined 5 years ago. And that's because we have the right leadership at the right time to move us forward in this direction. So I want to just close and just say to you that we're not launching a brand new initiative. So please take a breath. We have our strategic plan. We have made some amazing strides. But I do think what we need to do is recognize that we're at a very important moment. We're at an important moment in terms of the system. We're going to have a new chancellor. We're hopefully going to be at the tail end of the collective bargaining agreement to ensure compensation for faculty staff is at the level that will keep and retain and motivate all those involved. And I also think that we have an incredible student body leadership. And that student body leadership is going to help us move forward again in a productive way. So I think it is a unique time. Yes, there are winds swirling, and I say outside because as I hear about some of the discourse at the national level, it can be pretty discouraging. But we are a very strong community. We're a community that has a sense of pride, a sense of ownership, a sense of place, and a sense of purpose. And because of that, I am very optimistic about the future and what we'll accomplish. And I just want to thank all of you, your commitment and the commitment of our students, because I can't imagine us doing what we will be doing the next year, the next few years without you. So thank you again. I'm happy to entertain some questions.
And thank you, President Delatorre. And there are some hands up. I want to also encourage those who are putting comments in the chat to please raise your hand instead. And we will make sure that you get a chance to ask your question or make your comment in the space instead of putting those comments in the chat. So we will go first. I saw, I'm going to ask you to please put your, did you? Zoom. Thank you. Okay, Senator Oros, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. So a record amount of grant funding implies a record amount of overhead dollars. You see, are we going to see an increase in support for research and computing based on this, windfall?
I think that right now, I will have to say both Hala Madanat and Vice President Sheehan are actually looking at an opportunity to not only increase that support, but there's also another important area that we need to focus on, and that is cybersecurity, right? Every day, it has become an increasing problem. And for some of you like me, received a letter from the system about a breach in data security. So those are things that are definitely in the plan with a budgetary recommendation. And so what I will do is ask Hala to follow up with you and provide you greater detail. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Senator Herman, you're recognized.
Great, thank you very much. Concerning a doctoral program in the humanities, one, I have to ask, is that really a great job? There are very few places which call for such a PhD. But more importantly, will you commit, if you're going to have a doctoral program in the humanities or across the university, will you commit to lowered class sizes? Right now, upper division classes are capped at anywhere from 37 to 40 students, which is ridiculously high. And will you commit to a significantly lower teaching load, as any R1 university would have, say a 2-2 load? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Herman. First of all, the authority that will be approved on will be a professional doctoral degree authority to the CSU. What that will mean is that, and going to the point of how can you get a degree in the humanities if there are no jobs, it will require a justification on workforce. Third, I think this is where the opportunity for Mellon comes as a really unique opportunity for those who are interested in pursuing that, meaning that if we're able to get a Mellon grant to support this new degree, that they would work very closely in order to do that. So there are a couple of things that have to happen in order to get to that position, in order for the system to ultimately improve of any professional doctoral facility. What I would suggest, Professor Herman, is that the deans and the department chairs are the ones that really have the purview on looking at these workloads. So thank you.
Okay, as President Morrison, you're recognized.
Yes, President, and I agree with you that the synergy is not a coincidence. I think it's a testament to the fact that we're all moving in the right direction and we all have the same mentality towards what students find valuable. And so you listed a statistic that 45% of our majors, or 45 majors have 90% of our graduates. So what is your approach to utilizing this information? Is that an indicator to you that we have to specialize on those 45 and play to our strengths, or are we going to continue to try to make those remaining 10% come to the forefront? How are you going to approach utilizing that information?
Thank you, Tara, for the question. It was really interesting when we met with the chairs, is that many of the chairs are already thinking about that. As I said, I mentioned one of the professors from the College of Arts and Letters, Clarissa, who is working on a brand new major that will be one that will have broader attraction to students. It isn't so much ending, and I think that's important. What you have to understand is this is an opportunity for us to look at where there are opportunities for our students to grow from a professional, from a career point of view, as well as where the topic areas are of interest and how we can engage them. So I would say right now, there are many of the chairs, at least this was my impression of the 3 retreats, I actually had 4 retreats, that are very much engaged in this discussion, because they recognize that the opportunity for growth is going to be through collaboration and revision, if you will, reimagining, if you will, the kind of areas that have opportunities for our students. Second piece that I think is important, and this is something I know you'll speak to, is the importance of internships. You know, historically, we've focused internships in, areas like, the Fowler College of Business and then in engineering. Everyone that I speak to today about the importance of internships is that when you find that pathway from a major to an internship, the major becomes incredibly impactful for the student because it leads them to a career, not a job, a career, which is very different. It allows them to find a professional trajectory. So my point here is, I think this process is occurring organically by the chairs. And I do think you're going to see, and a good example is if you look at the sustainability major in, which is largely in housing geography, but it uses courses from across campus. That's a very popular major here, and a very important major in SDSU. And so I think what you're going to find is many different majors. It's not going to happen overnight, but I do think you're going to see a synergy, a creativity, and a collaboration that's going to allow us to look at new opportunities for our students. So thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 other hands up, but I also want to note that we're running way over our time served. So these will be the last 3 comments. Senator Carter Curtis, you're recognized.
Thank you. Hi, President De La Torre. So you mentioned that the URM number was increased by 16% this year. And so what I want to know is, I know that includes our Latinx students, our African American students, and our Native American students. And I'm wondering if you've given any thoughts about disaggregating that data even further. What I've observed is that sometimes masks what's really going on.
We actually have disaggregated the data, so I can provide that to you. You know, one of the areas that I have been concerned with is the Native American student enrollment numbers have really not grown. The students passed a fee, and now we're able to compete with UC. If you think of who's our biggest competitor, it really is not other CSUs, it's really the UC. And that's going to allow us to provide the financial support that we desperately need for that. And that number hasn't really moved. It's been disappointing, and I think we have to recognize that you have to have, you know, the broader financial support. Also, I think with our African American students, we're at about 4.2. We've been hovering there. It's flat. That's another area, and we've also been able with this fee to address the issue of financial need. But there is an area that really does concern me, and that is our men of color. So if you look at the distribution, and I think you need to look at it not just in terms of groups, but by gender, this is really a national problem. And it's such a problem that if we look at some of the issues of where we have compacts, so we have the Sweetwater Compact, and there are people here who can speak to that. What we're seeing is a lot of our men of color, they're enrolling and they don't continue. They basically drop out. And so that's another area that I have deep concern about, because we look at these equity measures in terms of groups, but we also have to recognize that gender plays a very important role. And that there is, right now, it's a national problem, but it's a problem that I think we need to tackle. It's not that we can, I think we need to tackle, is looking at these gender disparities within the URMs and then begin to hone into those areas. But I certainly can give you the numbers. I look at those, in fact, weekly, I look at these numbers. There's the other piece, I think, in the data that concerns me a little bit, but I think we're gonna go over that. And that was, you know, during the COVID years, we had, you know, a higher persistence because everyone didn't know about the economic persistent numbers. That has affected us in that now when we have a more robust economic environment, people will leave. And so again, we've got to, this is why the issue of internships, paid internships, not just internships, become important. The financial piece is very, very important for our students. And so that's why when I spoke to Tarek, I said, even with this tuition increase, which is very important, I don't want a student to leave SDSU for financial reasons. That should never be the reason why. And so we've got to work on that, and that is a strategy that is really top of my agenda in addressing inequities, because it isn't the metric that the system gets, it's the metric that we need to have to truly talk about social justice and equity for our URM students. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Senator Kelly, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. You brought up the great funding that we're putting in, and we're also talking a lot about careers. And I think that all kind of fits together. So we're talking about these things. I think the number one thing, and I speak for biology, but I probably also speak for chemistry and many other fields, the number one way that people get skilled and become great in their field is through research. So we bring in research dollars and we train from our efforts, bringing them into the lab. They're trained by us and by our graduate students to do hands-on research, and that gives them a job. But what I'm seeing, and this is like in all the talk, especially biology, but in all the sciences, we're seeing that we're not getting the support for our students. We're not, our staff, but we have 3 staff members for the entire biology, which is one of the best job creation groups in the thing. And we just lost one because they're not paid enough to work. Our graduate students, who do the majority of in-house training of our undergraduates, do things like PCR and all these kind of molecular techniques that get them jobs. Their funding rate is going down. They can't afford the housing. And I'm extremely concerned about our new faculty, who are the brightest, most incredible people I've met, coming in here with very low salaries, with no housing. Housing is out of control expensive. They're bringing in these dollars. You know what they're going to do? They're going to leave. They're going to leave, and all of those jobs they're going to bring. I had one faculty member bring 13 students to Scotland because he was so successful in getting all the grants for all the students. It's amazing to give them that experience. That's what's going to get them jobs. That's what's going to get experience. That's what's going to get them to graduate school. And all I see is a decline and decline and decline and decline. So my question to you is, are you going to bring back, you're going to raise tuitions, you've been raising fees over and over and over again. And all I see is like, I'm a bioinformatician. I'm in one of the hottest fields in the biotech. All my students get jobs. I have nobody to help them. They don't even pay me in the summer to do this. And I'm trying to teach these students the top line computational biology machine learning crap that they need to get a job. So my question is, how are you gonna bring this money back to train the students, to help the researchers, to pay us a living wage, and really make the research keep going? Because we're bringing a lot of money and our resources are down here. So what are you gonna do at the department level?
Thank you, Professor Kelly. And indeed, I think right now, the issue of collective bargaining and the compensation that we are going to finally get should address a number of the issues that you were talking about. As you know, all the unions right now, both staff unions as well as faculty, as well as graduate students, are in the process. I do think the other issue that you brought up about housing is also critically important. And I know that our Chair Butler Bird has been working with the idea of creating a kind of a system of a mortgage opportunity program, similar to what the UC has had, and has brought that forward as well. I will say that I will, with my first meeting with the chancellor, bring these issues up, because issue housing is a very real issue. We have been very aware of with our students, one of the things that we have been consciously trying to do in many ways is ensure that we can purchase, if you will, the apartments so that our students can live at a subsidized level. And that has been a strategy we've been doing over the years in order to forestall some of the issues that UC San Diego is experiencing. But it is certainly something that we are very, very involved in. And the last piece on the compensation issue, one of the things that I have talked to the chancellor and I've talked to the presidents is in certain job categories, the compensation makes no sense. I can speak to a number of categories where we have had jobs posted and we have not been able to fill them. IT being one of them. It's been extremely difficult to find and to hire people in IT at the level of compensation. My hope, and I'm going to be optimistic about this, is that once we settle on the CBA, we can address these issues directly, but I appreciate your comments, and indeed will take them back to the chancellor's office as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Senator Sherman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler Bird, and thank you, President De La Torre, for coming to speak to us today. There's a lot of issues facing faculty and staff with compensation, as someone that makes under 30 grand a year take home can attest to. But my question is more about the students. And you mentioned that I think if tuition does go up in a couple of weeks when voted on, it would only be the second maybe time that tuition had increased. But I felt like that suggests that student costs haven't been increasing recently, but they have, at least through new student fees. And so my question is, if those in power decide to raise tuition, what will be SDSU administration's stance on new student fees at SDSU going forward? Continue to propose and implement them, put a halt to that? I know students are really facing dire financial situations as well.
So we have put a pause. In fact, what we are doing, and we're working with the students on this, is in the spirit of shared governance, we want to develop a new process in order to review the process of new student fees. Right now, if you look across all the campuses on the CSU, each campus does it differently. And we inherited a process that I think can be improved in, I think, with the students, and that's one of the major goals before we would move forward with any new fees. Right now, I don't anticipate any new fees. I don't see them in the horizon. And as I said, depending on what happens with the tuition fee, we'll see how we can again create a return date. Just so you know that when tuition goes up, only 70% of the tuition goes back to the campus. 30% goes to what is called SUP, which is the system's undergraduate and graduate fee support structure that is redistributed to campuses to help offset fees. I'm also concerned, and I've already talked to our head of financial aid, those, what I'd say, the lower middle class students who don't qualify for Pell, they don't qualify for STUP, and they get very limited state aid. Those are the students that indeed oftentimes are sandwiched in this particular project. And that's an area where, in terms of both philanthropic attention as well as internal institutional support we're going to look at, and I am going to look closely with Tarek, because Tarek, as a student leader, can help articulate that vision for us. So thank you for the question.
Title IX Director Mendez, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just checking everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. My name is Gail Mendez, and I am the director of the Center for the Prevention of Harassment and Discrimination, and I serve as the campus's Title IX coordinator. And I was asked to give a brief update today on the COSN assessment and where we are with that. Just to remind you, in March of 2022, the Chancellor's Office conducted a system-wide assessment of the Title IX and DHR programs. This assessment looked at all 23 campuses and the Chancellor's Office, and it utilized a variety of modalities. They were on our particular campus in November of last year. They were here for 3 days. While they were here, they conducted 2 open forums, one for faculty, one for staff. They met with the Associated Students leadership, and they held a couple town halls. And they also reviewed written documentation, including investigation files, templates, prevention and education efforts. They also utilized an online survey, which people could participate in if they weren't able to utilize one of the in-person. They followed up with individual virtual meetings, and they created a dedicated email address for people to give feedback. So it really was quite comprehensive. And they did this for all 23 campuses and the CO. In May of this year, the COSN firm gave a public oral report about their assessment at a CSU Board of Trustees meeting. Following that meeting, they issued the individual campus reports. We received our individual campus report July 17th of this year. This is all publicly available information, so anybody who wants to read the full report can do so. I've provided the links to the reports, but they're also available on my office's website. I really encourage anyone who reads the report to read our SDSU report in connection with the Chancellor's Office assessment. Like I said, all 23 campuses got a report along with the Chancellor's Office, and it's very important to read them in connection because many of the recommendations can really only be done at the Chancellor's Office level because they're system-wide recommendations. And the report encourages collaboration between the individual campuses and the Chancellor's Office, but much of the work cannot be done individually by campuses, so they really should be viewed as coexisting. It is a long project. It was a long endeavor to do the assessment, and the process to implement the recommendations right now is being projected to take between 2 and 3 years. There was over 100 total recommendations in the SDSU specific report. Those recommendations can be best categorized in falling into 5 themes that I've outlined for you. The themes of the recommendations centered around infrastructure and resources, strengthening internal protocols, communications, prevention, education, professional development and awareness, and responding to other conduct of concern. What COSN means when they talk about other conduct of concern is that they are talking about behaviors, conduct that may be disruptive to a department or a community on campus, but do not rise to policy definition. For example, if there is conduct that's been brought forward that people believe is discriminatory or harassing, but because of the way the policy definitions are around discrimination and harassment, it might not reach that threshold, but is nevertheless conduct that is concerning and conduct that is impacting to a particular community or department. COSN is recommending that we increase our procedures and processes around this other conduct of concern. I highlight that one because it's one that I think has a lot of overlap with faculty and staff. So I want you to be aware that that is a major focal point of the COSN recommendations. So now that's sort of where we are. We finally got our report. We have our recommendations. And the next steps is each campus was charged with forming an implementation team. President De La Torre convened our implementation team. And it is the implementation team that is responsible for planning the steps necessary to implement the recommendations. And I will be serving as the chair of the implementation team. The implementation team's work is very much in the preliminary stages at this point. We have our first meeting in the coming weeks, and we will be meeting regularly thereafter. And we will be reporting out to the campus community as we do our work. We will be creating an implementation team website that will document our progress on our recommendations and our targeted completion dates. And we will also communicate out to the community regularly besides the webpage. So that's a little bit of an update of where we are. I've included important links for you guys to utilize at your convenience. The first one is the actual SDSU COSN report. The next is my office's webpage that has additional supplementary information. It also has a link to the Board of Trustees meeting that I mentioned. So if anybody was not able to see that, but is interested to see COSN's report out to the Board of Trustees, there's a link on my webpage for that. And then I also wanted to include the CSU website as it pertains to this, because it has all 23 campuses reports on it, in addition to the Chancellor's Office report, which I highlighted as important to read in connection to with our report. So that is an update on COSN, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Director Mendez, for your report. We do have one hand up, and that's Senator Rafus. You're recognized.
Your report doesn't mention who the members of the implementation.
I have a hard time understanding.
Can you hear me?
I think I heard. Were you asking on who the membership on the implementation team was?
Yeah, and where can we get that list? I know I don't expect you to ramble off 17 names, but I don't see a link to those people's names or when the meetings will actually occur.
Okay, so I can provide that on the CPHD webpage, so I'm happy to update that if it's not there already. It is a cross-section of faculty, staff, and students. So we have representation from University Senate. We have academic advisors. We have multiple student representatives. We have sort of the Title IX team, myself, my direct supervisor. We have the UPD is recognized on the team, the president's chief of staff, dean of students, and other staff members from athletics is sort of a sample of that, but it's a pretty well represented team with a cross section of all the different stakeholders we could identify.
We will now move to Interim Provost Tom's report.
All right, just a couple of quick updates. So the enrollment, the fall 2023 head count is currently above, well, it's at 37,583 as of today. And that is about 37,000 for the first time ever. Currently, as the President mentioned earlier, we're at 100.88% of the target. And the largest growth came from our College of TSFA, Sciences, and College of Business. The first year class is at 6,103. The transfers are at 4,457. Both of those numbers are actually records, all-time records. First year and transfer student retention rates for students who came in fall of 2022 are both at 90.3%, right? And very high compared to other years. Imperial Valley brought in 515 new students. That is about 100 or 25% higher than last year. So all these fall 2023 numbers will not be official, of course, until census on September 18th. So we'll update you then next time. The summer 2023 head count actually was also a record, 11,082 students. So that's the first time we ever went above $11,000, 11,000 students during the summer. And that number is about 5%, a little over 5% higher than the previous summer. So we're using our summer, and we're moving towards our goal of turning our summer as a third semester in a lot of very important ways. For example, helping our students with their DFW issues, catching up on different courses, so that they don't have to wait another semester. And we even have courses where they can take a sequence, right, of one in summer session 1 and another one in summer session 2. So we can actually save the whole semester. All that thanks to AVP Stephen Hyman and his team, and all the deans and associate deans and chairs that we meet almost every other week throughout the summer, trying to figure out to make sure that all of our students have units. And averaging more than 15 units per student for undergraduates and about 13.5 units per student for all the transfer students. So we're making sure that we're not bringing them in, we're not just bringing them in, but also giving them enough units to take every semester. For the tenure track searches, we issue 56 BPA numbers so far. We have issued so far 56 BPA numbers, including 8 carry forwards from last year. And we could add a few more lines based on late retirement and separation notices we received, assuming that the areas or the colleges that want these lines are still okay with the line. We're not waiting, asking them to wait a whole year because we didn't receive the timing notice. One thing this year different is that all the portfolio ads, all the lines, they have to list the salary ranges. And so we're working on all of those, work with all of these, came up with the ranges, and a lot of these ads have been posted already. And as usual, if you have any issues with EIE, let us know. Jennifer and Zaki and Joanna Brooks here are working hard for us to process those with you. And just to remind everyone that we are back to pre-pandemic timelines now in terms of faculty searches. Right? We're asking all the departments to review their priorities and everything around January, February timeframe. And we have faculty, academic affairs retreats around April, which is to write all these lines. So that we can start the process about 20 months in advance of a new professor starting the following fall. That's all I have.
Thank you, Interim Provost. We really appreciate your report. We do have one hand up, and that's Senator Pappan. You're recognized.
Yes, Professor Tong, you mentioned 8% over our target. Are we being fully funded from the Chancellor's office on that 8%?
Yes, we, no, not 8%, 5%.
Well, 5%. Okay, but no discount on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You meant 100.88%?
Yeah, I thought you had said 8% over our target.
No, yeah, that is 100.88%. above the target. So we always want to settle around 100%, right? And we don't want to go too high above, below 100%. So within 0.1%, it really, and it will settle down a little bit by that consensus.
So we're receiving full funding on being above target.
It's only 0.1%, right? Not
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands, we'd like to move to our final time certain, and that's the California Faculty Association report. President Rhodes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler Bird. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, we are in a Unit 3 is in a reopening bargaining. And what I'd like to do is kind of go through, we're currently in mediation. And I want to kind of give you an idea of how we got there. I met during the summer, the bargaining team met with CSU management, CFA bargaining and CSU management. And we're opening on 4 articles. And excuse me, I have a cold. Salary being one, which is Article 31. So what I'm going to do is read to you, I'm looking at an infographic, what we proposed and what management came back with us. So it will give you kind of an idea of why we ended up in impasse. CFA proposed a general salary increase of 12% and equity adjustments for our lowest paid members, which would be applied to salary ranges A and B before the GSI. Management came back with a 5% GSI. They continued refusal to raise the salary floor for our lowest paid lecturers. Article 20, which is workload. We went in with course caps, determined course caps using the Educational Programs and Resources Policy, which is EPNR 76. They outright rejected that. We asked for counselor workload staffing and scheduling, codifying staffing minimums with a counselor to student ratio of 1 full-time equivalent staff member for every 1,000 to 1,500 students. And this is the recommendation from the International Accreditation of Counseling Services. They rejected the need for standards for staffing minimums or direct service limits. They claim that campus administrators can determine campus mental health needs themselves, and they limited assignment flexibility for counselors. Assigned time for faculty on temporary contracts performing institutional service, 500 weighted, this is what CFA proposed, 500 weighted teaching units across campuses for lecturers performing university service, awarded by appropriate administrator after consultation with the department chair. They came back with assignment of these units is left to the sole discretion of our campus presidents. Health and safety, which is Article 37, request at least 1 single occupant, gender inclusive restroom per building, and safe gender inclusive changing rooms in gyms, fitness centers, etc. Require adequate and accessible lactation rooms for employees, limits the CSU's capability to dispatch police on faculty and give faculty the opportunity to be accompanied by a union representative or legal counsel if CSU police seek to interview them. Management came back with a vague nod to what CSU has done already for inclusivity with no actual commitment to having gender inclusive bathrooms on campuses. Another vague nod to lactation rooms. They didn't even respond to the police situation. Article 23, leaves with pay. CFA asked for paid parental leave, 1 full semester or 2 quarters of paid leave to care for a new child, newborn or newly adopted. crisis leave, 5 days of paid leave to attend to care for an immediate family member in a health or natural disaster crisis, and it's rejected. We're supposed to, so we went to impasse as a result, and impasse means that the parties have reached a point in meeting and conferring in which their differences in positions are such that further meetings would be futile. So now once the Public Employment Relations Board, or PERB, determines impasse, both CFA and the CSU are obligated to participate in good faith mediation, and if ordered by the mediator, to proceed through fact finding. The state mediation and conciliation service assigns a mediator to assist both parties to reach a voluntary resolution on their disagreements. The mediator will meet individually and collectively with CFA and CSU representatives. If or when the mediator concludes that mediation cannot produce a settlement, they then certify the dispute for the next step, which is fact finding. So we are still in mediation. It was supposed to have been held last week, but last week's mediation was canceled due to the mediator and 2 CSU management members testing positive for COVID. The next mediation meeting is scheduled in Long Beach on Monday, September the 11th. And I wanted to recognize I have 2 e-board members, chapter e-board members, Esme Murdoch and Savannah Sherman. And I want to give them an opportunity if they want to say something. We also have, I'm going to ask Esme to put this in the chat, commit to take action for a fair contract. And I would really, it would be great if we as a union could just get as many of these commits to action as possible. The more they know that they see that we are working as in a concerted effort to get these bargainings passed, I think the better chances we'll have as we move forward. In the commit to action for a fair contract, what it reads is yes or no. Yes, I'm willing to take action, including attending rallies and publicly pledging my support for the contract we deserve, including a 12% general salary increase, increase to the minimum salary of the lowest paid faculty, improving parental leave, addressing workload, and protecting the health and safety of faculty. No is, and I'm sure we're not going to have anyone to do this, sign this, I'm willing to accept the chancellor's last offer of 5%, their rejection of salary corrections for the lowest paid faculty, their rejection of our proposals for expanded parental leave, their rejection of added workload protections for instructional faculty, and their rejection of more counselors, and rejection of our proposals for expanding health and safety rights. So I'd like, if my colleagues wanted to add anything else that I may have missed. And in the information item listed, there are some links that are important as we move forward. And if you are not a CFA member, it would be really wonderful if you would.
Thank you, Senator. For Senator Sherman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler Bird. And please tell me if I'm out of order. I was jumping at our president, our CFA president's invitation to say a couple more words about the bargaining.
Right, that's why I'm recognizing you.
Just making sure, even when you've been here a couple years, the rules are confusing. So thank you. And I just wanted to add, and thank you, Gloria, for that update, that the 5% that the CSU offered is sort of misleading because inflation's around 3.9%. So that 5% offer is really more like a 1.1% offer. And I know my take home last year was less than 30K. So there's so many of us that really do need relief now. And also the chancellor, the interim chancellor's response asserting that the CSU offered us 12% is also misleading. There's a bunch of contingency language in there, and we know how that goes. And the other last thing, the CSU chose to only focus on the money because apparently that's what we're focused on. None of our other proposals about health, safety, equity, inclusion, all these other paid leave, all these other things that also matter. So really the time to fight for ourselves and our students really is now. And thank you for listening to me again. I'm going to stop.
Thank you all, and thank you, President Rose, for your report. Much appreciated. So we have just a couple more reports that we're going to quickly move through, and I'm going to reverse in order because I want to make sure that we get this report in today. And that's item 5.4, our Senate Secretary. Secretary Fuller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler Byrd. I'm going to go ahead and share a couple pieces of news. One, the Senate officers, myself, and the Senate analyst have been working over the summer with the library to begin archival process of all Senate records. Some of the Senate records are already housed in the library. We've expanded the amount. The library archivist took possession of all the paper Senate records over the summer. And so that is in progress. I just wanted to make an update about that so folks know that that's going on. Yay, thanks, Will Weston. I see you in the comments. I just want to say thank you for your early support of this. It's been a long time coming. My second update is just to let folks know that we have made some pretty major revisions to the Senate website. And I wanted to do a quick demo just to make sure folks knew where to find things. And I'll try to make this as quick as I can. Mario, can I go ahead and share my screen? Awesome. With the updates to the Senate website, I wanted to make one quick announcement. There's this really helpful red button in the upper right-hand corner. It's called Request Senate Help. A lot of folks, and you'll see it in the listserv, attempt to make referrals or ask for things to be done in the listserv. The more appropriate place to do that would be to click this red Request Senate Help button, and we can log your request and follow up on that as appropriate, including referrals to committees or addressing your concerns that are directed to Senate officers in the Senate in general. This is also where you would report a proxy and a lot of other things. So that's the most efficient way to get us. You can also email senate@sdsu.edu. In terms of the website, I wanted to note that Senate roster and the committee rosters are located in a single page called Rosters and Senate and Committees. If you click on the red button, you will be taken to an Excel spreadsheet that includes the Senate rosters, Senate committee information, and I'll just demo quickly what it looks like. At the bottom, there are a lot of tabs. If you click on Senate roster, you can see everybody who's in the Senate and what constituency they represent. You can see a committee overview tab, and that gives you all the Senate committee chairs, their meeting times, a lot of information. And then each committee has its own tab. And in those tabs, the rosters for the committees, the membership charter from the Senate policy file, who the chair is, the chair's contact information. You'll see the meeting time at the top. This document is really helpful, but the reason I'm pointing it out is really to say that each of these Senate committees used to have their own webpage. That is not really sustainable long-term to maintain. That's a lot of Senate pages on the web page to host, taking up a lot of bandwidth there. So we're moving to this model of this spreadsheet. It may be confusing for folks, which is why I'm pointing it out. If you have any questions, you can submit a help request via the button. You can reach out to the Senate officers at senate@sdsu.edu. Another helpful page on the Senate website is the submit page. Committee chairs can submit items for SDC in the Senate agenda here. Also, on the view page, you can see all of the Senate and SEC documents. So the agendas, the minutes, the recordings of the reports, any action memos that arise from these meetings will be housed here. And so I just wanted to point out that the Senate webpage underwent a pretty large overhaul over the summer. Again, I'm not going to go into any more detail for the interest of time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to sort of answer briefly here, or you can email us if you have more questions about those updates.
Thank you, Secretary Fuller. We will now move to Senate Vice Chair Vasquez, her report.
Chair Butler Bird, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you folks in person. So, Mario, you have the. Yeah, so also over the summer, we went through and looked at the standing committees and all the other committees and councils as well to review the existing referrals that are still pending. And so I was waiting until after today's meeting, so I'll be sending out an email to committee chairs with just a kind of a friendly reminder of the referrals that are still pending. And again, please let us know if you have any questions. I know that at the chair's orientation, we went over the Trello account. I know that that's kind of funky sometimes, so if you have any questions, please let us know. Yeah, and
thank you. And Treasurer Sharma, you're recognized for your report.
Thank you. So let me report comes here. Thank you. So I think you see the expense report here for this academic year. We have very little expense, of course. For the previous academic year, we had $179,000, 500 plus 13 cents, and we have written the expenditure details. On top of that, we also contacted Mariam regarding the sign time huge, and we have received the reply. However, it still needs more work before it can be reported here, because the information I received is not clear as we expected for the department and the college, what was used, what was not used. That information is still not clear. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that was our final report. We don't typically have this many reports at our meetings. Starting probably our next meeting, we'll have a lot more action memos, and those will be the first things that we will address. I want to thank Associated Students for these tables. Otherwise, we will be sitting here with our laptops in our.
My pleasure.
It's amazing how hard it was to find tables on this campus. And we'd like to really thank Mario and Kevin for their hard work all summer long. And
please hold your
without them. So I'm wondering if I can get a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you all so much.